I knew early in life that I was different. For a long time, I didn't accept my difference, and I tried to change, but that didn't work. I am homosexual. I'm gay. But our society told me it was wrong and that I was defective. What I couldn't understand was why it mattered. I wasn't hurting anyone, so why exactly was it wrong? The reality is, I was just different. Not good or bad, just different. And being different should not be a crime or considered to be wrong unless that difference hurts others. Another reality is that many people believe their version of reality is the only acceptable one. My contention is that diversity is the norm, whether you like it or not. If a diversity hurts you in some way, opposing it may be self-protection, like with cancer or even with a bully. But if some diversity is not harming you, such as having a different color, different sexual proclivities, or gender identity, and you aggressively oppose it, that is prejudice. Demonizing something that is different is a choice, and that choice often hurts others, not the actual difference. So, we all have choices to make regarding the diversity all around us, to accept it or deny it, to accept or deny the right to be different. And this sermon is my belief that diversity is woven into the very fabric of the universe. It's also a call to action in how we deal with the diversity all around us. But now, back to my belief that diversity is the norm. As a child, I was told that no two snowflakes are alike. That's an amazing assertion. Since the dawn of time, there have been trillions of snowflakes, and to contend that in all that time, no two have been alike is utterly astounding. In addition, no two people, no two animals, and no two of anything are alike. In his book, Judaism is About Love, Rabbi Shai Held wrote the following: "Never before in the history of the cosmos has there ever been, and never before, never again in the history of the cosmos will there ever be, another human being just like you." And that simple fact testifies to the glory of God, or in UU terms, the glory of the universe. Rabbi Held goes on to write, "Not only are we all absolutely valuable, we are all distinctive and unique. And this teaching reminds us we are to be cherished and celebrated." Yes, cherished and celebrated. Science shows us much of what I'm sharing here today. When a single ray of white light strikes a prism, that light breaks into its component parts, and we see a beautiful rainbow of colors. Collectively, we are one species, but each of us is different, beautiful, distinct parts of creation, none any better or any worse than any other, only a rainbow of unique individuals. Sometimes something that we don't know or don't understand can be dangerous, but it isn't always dangerous. If it were, we'd all be dead because we're surrounded by diverse life everywhere. And yet we're not dead. We actually thrive because of that diversity. Our guts support many different organisms that promote a healthy digestive system. Yes, a wayward organism now and then causes us problems, but there are far more compatible organisms in our guts that promote balance and health than do us harm. A diverse ecosystem is also healthier. Farmers long ago discovered crop rotations work better than planting the same thing over and over, which eventually causes production to fall or even fail. On a much larger scale, the moon works with the earth, and we benefit from the tidal changes that circulate marine nutrients and help stabilize our climate. The moon, which is vastly different and smaller, works with the earth, making our environment friendlier for our continued existence. I've even read that Jupiter, millions of miles away and far larger than Earth, acts like a cosmic bodyguard, preventing many dangerous asteroids from getting too close to us. So in our solar system, a diverse assortment of bodies circles the sun, and no two are alike. But even in the vast universe, all we see is diversity. Our solar system, with its 8 planets orbiting a solitary sun, feels familiar because it's where we live. But in the galaxy at large, star systems like ours are in the minority. More than half of all the stars in our galaxy have one or more partner stars. These multiple star systems come in a stunning variety of flavors. Large hot stars are orbited by smaller, cooler ones. Double stars orbited by planets. Pairs with pulsing with X-rays as one sheds material that is devoured by another. Systems with as many as 7 stars in a complex gravitational dance. Pairs of neutron stars can spiral together and collide, producing some of the universe's heavy elements like gold, platinum, and iodine. In fact, without stars' diversity, life here on Earth would not exist. While our sun provides us with energy, it won't ever create the building blocks of life. Those building blocks, carbon, calcium, iron, and oxygen, all came from exploding stars which were much more massive than our own sun. Without those very different and more massive stars, we would not be here. Just because we may be unaware of how diverse things actually are, ranging from up close, like with our guts, to far off, like with neutron stars, doesn't mean that diversity doesn't exist, or that it isn't essential for life as we know it, because diversity is essential. I started this sermon sharing about being a homosexual. Yes, in our species, males and females procreate to further our species. But in fact, sexual variation for all life on Earth is actually much more diverse than the binary our society often expects. Professor Patricia Cashian provides us with some often ignored facts about diversity in other species in her book, Forest Euphoria: The Abounding Queerness of Nature. I don't object to the word queer in the book title because it simply means different. We are all different from each other. And as Dr. Cashian points out, nature cannot be contained, constrained, or even truly defined. About our species, she writes, that diversity about other species, she writes, That diversity is not only abundant in nature, but is its very premise. The beings of our world are bound together by webby agreements predicated on difference. We all engage in special earthly practices, trading energy through water, sunlight, iron, and sugar, each of us taking and contributing, each of us necessarily different. These differences are not positive or negative. They simply exist. The binary rules that exist in human society are challenged by the ubiquity of queerness in nature. From fungi with more than two sexes, to crows in same-sex partnerships, to the intersex bodies of snails and eels, we find an inspiring array of diversity in our fellow species. Queerness is common throughout the tree of life. All sorts of organisms, snails, mushrooms, termites, algae, dolphins, and countless others show us that life is not only possible, but abundant outside of the narrow boxes of binaries. And variations of queerness in organisms, especially in animals, have been recognized around the world for thousands of years. One scientist has compiled an enormous body of documentation of same-sex couples, transgendered beings, and otherwise queer relations in the animal world dating back over 100 years. Dr. Cashian goes on to write, "Unfortunately, being queer or different is used to frighten people. This accusation was a strategy in the anti-gay movements in the 1970s and 80s, which sought to paint gay men as uniquely predisposed to pedophilia and gay marriage as a threat to children's well-being. Now, this same fear-mongering tactic is being repurposed in the anti-trans movement. This fear tactic preys on parental fears of children being converted, corrupted, and forced into queerness. Ironically, heteronormativity is far more likely to sexualize children than queer culture. We all know the word heterosexual, and heteronormativity is used to refer to societal attitudes that attempt to enforce heterosexuality as the default or the only normal human sexuality. Sadly, what our society considers to be normal excludes a wide range of unique and wonderful individuals simply because they are different from the norm. Dr. Cashian writes, "Just as white people are not biologically superior to any other race, humans are not inherently more evolved than any other species. As humans, we evolved within a consortium of organisms, bacteria, fungi, plants, and other animals, some of whom were thriving on this planet for millions and even billions of years prior to our emergence. The forces of evolution do not move in any one predetermined direction. Just because we are mostly unaware of the many sexual variations in nature, which probably spills over into our own species, doesn't mean diversity doesn't exist or that it isn't essential to life as we know it. Religions have attempted to help us deal with the incredible diversity life throws at us, whether it comes in the form of hostile people or with challenging problems that we all face. The Buddha's teaching ministry began with his grappling with the fact that suffering and death are parts of life. One of his Four Noble Truths teaches that life is imperfect, temporary, and marked by suffering. His Noble Eightfold Path teaches about right intention, or selflessness and nonviolence, right speech, or refraining from lying or gossip, and right livelihood, or living in a way that doesn't cause harm to others. These are just a few of the ways the Buddha taught his followers to deal with both the harsh realities of living and dying, and how to live in community with each other. Similarly, the Hebrew people's 10 Commandments were another attempt to help people live in community with each other. Because we are all different and have a variety of needs, reminding community members not to lie, steal, or kill were and still are important teachings. And the teachings of Jesus in the Bible remind Christians to take care of the poor, feed the hungry, love and do good to their enemies, turn the other cheek when insulted, be merciful, don't judge, and many other profound teachings. Unfortunately, even though we live in a supposedly Judeo-Christian nation founded on many of those teachings, we've often strayed from them. In fact, many of our ancestors escaped religious persecution in Europe so that they could practice different religious ideas that were condemned where they came from. Once they arrived here, they then condemned the very different beliefs held by the Native Americans, and both tragically and ironically drove them from their ancestral lands. As often happens, the oppressed become the oppressors. Even so, centuries later, we capitalized on one unique Native American ability. The Navajo Code Talkers were a specialized group of U.S. Marines who created an unbreakable military code during World War II based on the unwritten, complex Navajo language. Their secure communications were instrumental in every major Marine operation in the Pacific Theater, saving countless Allied lives. But now I'll move on to another oppressed people. Because they were different, they were both prized and at the same time vilified. Of course, I'm talking about African Americans. I don't need to remind you of all the slavery atrocities, but I will remind you of the institutional racism committed against them after they were freed. The Reconstruction era lasted only a few years, and then new laws, Jim Crow laws, disenfranchised them once more. But they weren't the only laws. President Roosevelt's New Deal was a massive series of federal programs to combat the Great Depression. However, the New Deal systematically excluded Black Americans, primarily because Roosevelt compromised with Southern Democrats to pass his legislation. This exclusion manifested across several key areas, including agriculture and domestic work, housing discrimination, and jobs programs. So after hundreds of years of slavery, we systematically oppressed them in every economic way of life. But it didn't stop there. Soon, we were involved in World War II. More than 1 million African American men and women served in every branch of the U.S. Armed Forces during World War II. The Army, Navy, and Marine Corps all segregated African Americans into separate units because of the belief that they were not as capable as white service members. Adding to this indignity, the Army frequently assigned white officers from the American South to command black infantrymen. And it didn't stop there. After the war, white soldiers enjoyed the benefits of the GI Bill. While the GI Bill did not explicitly exclude black veterans, in practice, it systemically shut them out. Administration of the GI Bill was handled locally, and Jim Crow laws severely limited their access to the GI Bill benefits. Barriers for black veterans included housing disparities, education limits, and black veterans were disproportionately issued dishonorable discharges, which made them entirely ineligible for benefits. These actions are the very definition of institutional racism. Yes, we routinely capitalize on prized diverse abilities and demonize others, often in the same person. A perfect example is Alan Turing, a brilliant English mathematician and early computer scientist. During World War II, Turing devised techniques for breaking German codes. He played a crucial role in cracking intercepted messages that enabled the Allies to defeat the Axis powers in the Battle of the Atlantic and other engagements. After the war, in 1952, Turing was then prosecuted for homosexual acts. As an alternative to prison, he accepted hormone treatment, a procedure commonly referred to as chemical castration. Turing died on June 7, 1954, at the age of 41 from cyanide poisoning. An inquest determined his death was suicide. Cognitive scientist Douglas Hofstadter wrote the following about Turing: atheist, homosexual, eccentric marathon-running mathematician, Alan Turing was in large part responsible not only for the concept of computers, but also for cracking German codes during the Second World War. It is fair to say we owe much to Alan Turing for the fact that we are not under Nazi rule today. Just because we are unaware of the atrocities committed against various groups of people, that doesn't mean they didn't happen. And complicity in hiding that truth is deplorable. I started this service by sharing a poem by Lutheran pastor Martin Niemöller. First They Came is the poetic form of a 1946 post-war confessional by Niemöller. It directly condemns the complicity of German intellectuals and religious clergy following the Nazis' rise to power and then the genocide of their targets. Those targets were people who were different. And besides Jews, they also included people known as gypsies, Slavic peoples from Poland, Russia, and the Ukraine, people with disabilities, political opponents, LGBTQ plus individuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, and black people. Diversity is not the problem. There is nothing but diversity. Diversity often provides solutions to problems we face. However, prejudice, intolerance, and mindless hate are problems. If we see one of those problems targeting some specific person who is different and not hurting anyone, I believe we must act. We must seek justice, or our inaction is an act of complicity with their oppressor. Anti-Nazi dissident Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was killed by the Nazis for his actions, said, "Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." This reminds me of the golden rule we shared earlier in the service. We all want to be the people we were created to be. In order to follow the golden rule, which is common to all religions, it follows we must also allow others to be who they were created to be. But maybe in order to do that, we must first accept the fact of the incredible diversity all around us. We are all each unique expressions of this amazing universe we live in. And as long as another unique expression of this universe isn't hurting you, we must stop the violence against them for simply being different. We must help them live to their full potentials as the unique expressions of the universe that they are. Amen and namaste.